Did you know the Amazon rainforest was home to more than 47 million people? I didn't know that. And 2 million of them are indigenous people. Crazy, right? Listen, this next video is the 20 largest Amazon monsters ever discovered. Let's go.
When it comes to places that we still don't fully understand, the Amazon rainforest is right near the top of that list,
Absolutely.
if not at the very top of it. Despite the rampant destruction that's going on around all of its borders, it remains one of the most mysterious places in the world, and part of that reason is that it's one of the only places on the planet that we can't openly and easily travel through due to its density and the dangers that are inside of it. Oh yes, within the rainforest there be monsters, and these monsters come in all shapes, sizes, and deadliness. So with that in mind, here now are 20 largest Amazon monsters ever discovered. Number 20. Green Anaconda. So what kind of monster should I begin with? Well, it's hard to go wrong with a snake. I mean, after all, Indiana Jones can't seem to stand them. So why should other people? Plus, this isn't just a regular snake that I'm going to be talking about. It is the massive green anaconda, one of the biggest snakes in the world, and it is, in fact, the largest and heaviest snake in the world regarding body mass. By that, I refer to how this snake can sometimes be over 7 meters long and weigh around 277 kilograms at times. The irony here is that many of those measurements for the green anaconda are based on ones that have been caught and measured, so it's possible that there are those out there that are even bigger, longer, and heavier, just waiting to be found. But what makes them so monstrous is that they are apex predators, meaning that they have no natural predators that they have to fear, and that means that they can feast on just about anything that they want. And when they do, it is not pretty at all. You see, these are the kind of snakes that love to swallow their prey whole, and they're more than capable of doing that, even if the prey that they're after is much larger than their mouths can fit in. Now, they'll just
Even if it kills them, they're still gonna attempt it.
dislocate their jaw and force the food inside. And so, if you were to ever find one of these in the Amazon, and it has a huge bulge in its stomach, that means that it's recently eaten and it is very slowly digesting its food. Another thing that makes it monstrous is that it can exist pretty much anywhere, on land, in nearby rivers, and it can even climb trees to get its food. For this snake, nothing is out of reach. The good news is that they don't eat humans, so even if you went to the Amazon right now...
I hate when they say that, because we've all probably seen a video where one has had a kid in its belly.
You wouldn't have to fear this snake unless you gave it a reason to attack you. Before we go on, like this video, smash the subscribe button, and click the notification bell right now, or this centipede will crawl on your face when you're sleeping. And now it's time for the fancy topic. And oh boy, do I have a doozy for you this time. Can you hear the sarcasm in my voice? Take a look at this picture and you'll see what I mean. Allegedly, this picture is meant to recreate a crocodile that some scientists claim that they found the skeleton of at the bottom of the Amazon River. Now, finding bones at the bottom of the river is not such a far-fetched thing, but the size of these alleged bones was said to be so shocking that if the crocodile were actually real, it'd be the size of a small ship. Which actually isn't all that impressive given that some crocs, like the saltwater croc, can actually be over 6 meters long, which would absolutely make it the size of a small boat or a ship. But as this image highlights, they're talking more about the grand scale of something like a military ship or a vessel that would carry a lot of people down the river. So, do we think it's real? Well, of course not. I mean, first and foremost, there were crocodiles in the ancient world that could be well over 10 meters long, and they were quite the fearsome foes. But even with all of that girth, they wouldn't have matched up to certain small ships today. Secondly, if you look at the photo, this creature would be far larger than a small ship, not to mention it doesn't even have arms and legs that you can see. So no, you don't have to fear something like this popping up on your trip to the Amazon, and in fact, you have even much bigger things to fear than something that might have existed a long time ago. As always, you can comment down below using the hashtag #FancyTopic and let me know your thoughts about what you just saw on the screen. Number 19. Arapa. The Arapa is the largest freshwater fish in the entire world, and when you see one at its full length, it's around 3 meters long. So yes, the phrase, "that's a big catch," would definitely apply to this fish if you were to get one. Its length is not what makes it a monster though. It definitely helps, but instead, the reason that it's quite monstrous is because of its armor. That's right, this is an armored fish. Its scales have a mineralized hard outer layer with a corrugated surface under which lie several layers of collagen fibers in some kind of arrangement. In other words, its scales can make its outer body as hard as plywood, if not harder. Yet, despite having all that armor, it's incredibly flexible and able to move around in the water with ease. Curiously, despite it being a freshwater fish, it needs surface oxygen to survive, so that it has to keep surfacing to breathe. Number 18. The giant river otter. We're going to switch gears here to talk about a creature that is honestly not so monstrous like many of the ones that I'll be discussing, but instead it was dubbed a monster by humanity, and as a result, it's actually close to extinction. I'm talking about the giant river otter. And yes, they are quite giant, as an adult can be up to 1.8 meters in length, making it the largest of the otter line. Yet they have a very refined social structure, and they're not as much of a threat as people think. But did that stop them from being hunted down? Well, no. There was a point where they were being hunted solely because they were nuisances, and then when they found out that the otter's pelts were valuable, they hunted them in great numbers for that. And that's why they were...
I was wondering what they were hunting them for, because I was like, I've never heard like otters being made into any type of clothing or anything like that, but I guess, what is it being used for? I know it wasn't food, so it got to be something. I don't know, but I didn't know that.
Eventually put on the endangered species list. Many feel that there are less than 5,000 of them left in the world today. Isn't that a tragedy? People simply didn't like these otters, and so they hunted them down and went further for profit. It's reasoning like that which may be the doom of our world if we're not careful in the future.
It is going to be the doom
Number
of us.
17. Jaguars. Now, it shouldn't be too much of a surprise that there is a big cat in the Amazon rainforest, or even several. I mean, after all, why wouldn't there be? The twist is that the jaguar is the only big cat in North and South America. No mountain lions do not count. And just to put rankings in your head, the jaguar is the third biggest cat out there, only behind the lion and the tiger. But what really separates them from the two big cats above them is how they act and hunt. Unlike lions and tigers, they live a solitary life. They do not hunt in groups or even have a pride. And furthermore, they're more than capable of swimming and being good hunters in the water. Because of that, they have apex predator status in the Amazon, and they'll even go after other apex predators if they're feeling bold. Now, with their sleek bodies and powerful jaws, they can get to where they want to be quickly and dispatch with prey in only a few bites. In other words, you don't want to mess with one if you're unlucky enough to cross them. Number 16.
Yeah, when I seen one of them grab like a crocodile or a gator, that's when I was like, all right, bro. I already thought this animal was to be feared, but now to see that, oh yeah, that's different.
The Harpy Eagle. While birds may not be the biggest threats of the Amazon forest, it should be noted right off the bat that there are plenty of them out there to find if you know where to look. Many of them are simple, exotic birds that are pretty to look at. And then there's the Harpy Eagle. This is one of the largest eagle species in the world, and is yet another apex predator of the Amazon. They are able to fly around, swoop down, and get their prey with their talons before the creature even realizes what's happening to it. The large talons can exert several hundred kilograms of pressure and force, which can crush the bones of their prey and instantly kill them. So yes, that's a thing that they can do. Now, what may surprise you the most is that they have rather long lives. They're said to live up to 35 years, meaning they're a constant and consistent threat in the Amazon. And no, humans don't really have to worry about them that much, but do you really want to take the risk? I surely would not recommend it. Number 15. The Amazonian Manatee. You probably didn't expect to see this kind of creature on the list. I mean, while few would call something like an Amazonian manatee a monster, you do have to admit that it's a rather large creature, and something that has been known to attract the wrong kind of attention, which is why it's become endangered. Amazonian manatees occur throughout the Amazon basin in countries like Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, and Brazil. They live in freshwater oxbows, blackwater lakes, and lagoons, which all have deep connections to big rivers and plenty of aquatic vegetation. These creatures are the true definition of a gentle giant, and they wouldn't hurt anyone intentionally. However, humanity has hunted them down for quite a time, and that's why they're a vulnerable species today. Plus, it's hard to track their population numbers, and so nobody really knows how many of them are actually out there. Number 14. The giant anteater. Well, I'm sure that something as small as an ant would view the giant anteater as a monster, but should humans do the same? Well, it depends on how you want to define the monsters that you fear. For example, the giant anteater is indeed a giant among its kin, and it's said to be the size of a golden retriever. What might freak you out is that it has a sense of smell that not only dwarfs a human's, but it actually puts it to shame. Now, it's 40 times more powerful than the average human knows, and that's why it's able to find all of those ant hills that it just loves to snack on. A unique twist in all of this is that it won't just go to town and snack on the colony forever. These creatures are actually vulnerable to ant bites, so it may eat for about a minute while it has the element of surprise, and then it simply moves on. Number 13. The electric eel. Next up is another classic
anteater who can get bit up by ants but still chooses to eat them. That surprisingly, that's the first time I've ever heard that, because I mean, I've heard about anteaters since I was a kid, but nobody went in depth to say that they can also be agitated by the ants that they're looking to eat. Like, that don't seem crazy to y'all or odd that they still pursue it. That's crazy.
River monster that is both an incredible threat and yet one that may not be as dangerous as you would expect. The electric eel absolutely lives up to its name regarding its ability. Within its body are special organs that can build up an electrical charge that can be released at 650 volts. And for the record, that's more than the wall socket you likely have in your house. And some even claim that they can get to over 800 volts in that discharge. It's shocking, I know. But I'll ask you the question, is this a deadly jolt? Well, it kinda depends on the circumstances. This eel that is not actually an eel uses the water to help amplify the electrical charge to either stun or potentially kill its prey or predators. So does that mean that it can kill a human? Well, not necessarily.
It depends on your heart. And each person's heart is different of what we could possibly take. You know what I'm saying? It's all based on the condition that your heart is in.
Necessarily. It won't even attack a human unless it's provoked, and even then, unless you're fully submerged in the water and in poor health or something, the worst that you're likely to get is just a good shock, if not being stunned for a moment. Talk about a bolt from the blue, right? Number 12. The giant stingray. Here's a creature that is definitely monstrous in size and could be a danger to humans if you're not careful. But in general, the giant stingray is one that merely wants to be left alone as it wanders through rivers and other bodies of water. The biggest one ever caught was not actually in South America, it was in Asia, and it was a 4-meter long stingray that weighed over 300 kilograms, which is really big. So you can just imagine how long the stinger is. And to be clear, yes, the stinger is something you should fear, and it does have toxins that can hurt a human. But they aren't aggressive creatures, so if you don't mess with them, you'll have no reason to think about it stinging you. And so the lesson here is, be smart and you should be fine until you do something stupid, and then that stinger's gonna go right through you, including potentially through your bones. Number 11. Giant armadillo. Now, if you are one to freak out over a giant armadillo, then you must really be scared. I mean, a giant armadillo, it's not really something to be freaking out about on the regular. So then, why is it on this list? Well, that's because it has giant in the title. We do need higher standards for monsters here. How big is this armadillo? Well, it can get to 100 centimeters in length and weigh up to 54 kilograms, so it is a big boy, but again, it's not exactly one that you should immediately fear just because it's big. The case in point, the giant armadillo prefers termites and some ants as its prey, and it often consumes the entire population of a termite mound. So that makes it a bit more aggressive than the anteater. And so that should tell you something about its appetite and what it needs to actually feel full. Number 10, the tapir. Next up is a creature that I'm not sure I would actually call a monster, but it is something that you should look out for just to be on the safe side.
What?
The tapir is a creature that's been around for millions of years.
Like a crossbreed.
And to that end, it hasn't really changed much during that time. That makes it a primitive creature due to how it's not evolved, unlike most animals on Earth. That all being said, you should not mock this creature because it is quite long and heavy. It can be over 2 meters in length and weigh over 400 kilograms, so yes, it definitely has mass. And while they're often the victims of local predators, which includes big cats and crocs, they have really tough hides and have a bite that can ward them off if they're able to get a good shot or two in. They may be primitive, but they know how to survive and are actually key parts in the survival of the rainforest ecosystem. Number 9, the capybara. Now, if you're somebody who goes around calling the capybara a monster, you really need to have your humanity checked. I mean, yeah, they are rodents, cool kind of rodent. You can actually keep one as a pet. Standing at 60 centimeters tall and looking like they know more than you with their classic expressions, the capybara is the largest rodent in the world today. Even New York City rats do not match up to this creature. Water is a source of life for the capybara, as they eat water plants and grasses and use the water shelf to escape from danger. Plus, if they do feel threatened, they can be completely submerged in water for a few minutes without any issues until their predator gets bored and goes away. To show you how some people don't view them as monsters, capybaras are actually a popular exotic pet for people to try and own. And though you often need to buy 2 at once because they are social animals and they don't do well by themselves. Number 8, the Amazon River dolphin. Now, you might think of dolphins as not living in a river, but there are plenty of them who do, and the Amazon River dolphin is the large one that resides in the Amazon's water. They are, in fact, over 2.4 meters in length and can sometimes be a rather pinkish color. Not something that you would expect from a dolphin, but there it is. The real monsters here are, once again, humanity, who have not been taking care of the rivers that these dolphins live in, and as a result, their population numbers are in decline. Efforts are being taken, though, to try and help them out. Number 7, Redbellied Piranha. You were probably waiting for piranhas to show up. I mean, after all, when it comes to river monsters that live in the Amazon waters, what's more dangerous than a piranha? You've seen them in movies and TV, and they're often depicted in a really harsh light. You may be surprised though. I mean, after all, while piranhas are dangerous and can absolutely be scary when you see a swarm of them in the water, ones like the red-bellied piranha are not exactly something you have to fear on a regular basis. For example, while they are aggressive at times when it comes to eating, they're actually omnivores and not carnivores. To that end, they are quite fine with eating plants versus going after any kind of meat, which is probably not what you expected. But it gets even more weird than that. You see, not only do they not go after meat all the time, they've been dubbed the vultures of the water, meaning that they're actually more akin to being a scavenger than full-on ravenous hunters. Adding to all of that is the fact that they only tend to go after animals that are already dead or dying. That way they can just get the meal without having to be interrupted or losing it. And if you still want more, while movies do love to show piranhas in massive groups that can devour things in an instant, like people, down to the bone, they actually don't eat as a pack. The red-bellied piranha only uses their groups to fend off predators. But that's the thing about nature and pop culture, it's not meant to go hand in hand. There are a lot of people who have exaggerated the nature and stylings of the piranha for a long time now, not unlike with sharks. And as such, people will fear them when they should only be somewhat cautious. Yes, you do not want to antagonize a piranha, of course.
I was about to say, you've seen what them things can devour. What you mean don't fear them? I fear them, bro. I've seen them strip something down all the way to the bone.
But you also don't need to be on the lookout or peering over your shoulder or into the water and expecting them to jump into your boat and eat you alive. Number 6. The green iguana. Now, at first you may think that the green iguana doesn't belong on a list of monsters from the Amazon, but as in all things, there are ways for something harmless to become quite harmful. In this case, while the green iguana is known for being non-aggressive, and something that many people will keep as a pet, it is also one of the worst invasive species in North and South America. You may remember that Florida is a nesting ground for all sorts of invasive species due to people bringing in exotic animals and then simply letting them loose. And the green iguana was one of those animals. It's so invasive in Florida that there are jobs where you literally go around and delicately put an iguana out of its existence so that they can't repopulate. Think about that for a moment. Oh, and if you think it's not real, it was actually on an episode of Dirty Jobs with Mike Rowe. Number 5. The golden poison dart frog. Now, it's a very rare thing that we get to talk about frogs being dangerous, but even if you wish to get biblical and talk about certain plagues, well, that wasn't a deadly thing. It was just really annoying for the Egyptians. But as nature has a way, there is always something to be worried about with each species, and with the golden...
That bright yellow is a dead giveaway. Always, man. Those bright colors just automatically, I say, poisonous, deadly. Stay away.
Poison dart frog, aka the poison dart frog to most, this is a creature that you should never ever touch ever. The reason is that their bodies produce an incredibly deadly toxin that covers their entire skin. And that way, if predators even think about coming after them, the frog will get the last laugh by either touching them and poisoning them, or allowing that poison to kill them from the inside out, should they even dare to try and eat it.
And look how small it is. You could accidentally grab that by mistake and not know it or step on it, which you probably shouldn't be walking around in the Amazon barefooted. But if you are, say you are, like, that's so small that you could just encounter that by accident.
Curiously though, that toxin is produced by the frog is so deadly that it's actually not known how the frog is immune to the toxin itself. More than likely, it evolved from some kind of immunity that ensures that it can emit it without being taken by its own self-defense mechanism. Now, as for why it's called the golden poison dart frog, that would be because the native people of Colombia learned about how deadly the toxin was and was able to kill the frog safely and then put the poison on the tips of their darts. As a result, they could take out prey of all types just by hitting them with the tip. That should further quantify how effective it is. So yeah, if you're ever at the Colombian side of the Amazon rainforest, don't even think about going and touching any golden frogs that you see, because if you avoid them, you may actually end up living longer. Number 4. The Goliath bird-eater tarantula.
Nope.
How is it that we've gone this long in this list and we're only just now getting to spiders? I mean, they're spiders. That makes them monsters by default, right? And the fact that I'm talking about the Goliath bird-eater tarantula makes me want to scream in terror because I now have to look at video footage of it. Yes, it is quite the large spider, and the biggest spider in the world when it comes to mass, as it can be up to 13 centimeters and weigh about 6.2 ounces. But the irony of everything is that it honestly doesn't eat birds all that much. However, it has been spotted eating things like hummingbirds, so it's not out of their wheelhouse. Number 3. The black cayman. The Amazon is an absolutely perfect place for alligators and crocodiles to live in and thrive. Well, yes and no. Yes, it is the perfect place for them to dominate the local wildlife, but I'm technically not talking about either here. Instead, the black caiman is a crocodilian. A black caiman is the largest predator in the Amazon ecosystem, potentially capable of taking any animal within its range, and that also includes other predators. And just to be clear, I'm saying largest and not longest, because that would go to a certain snake that I talked about at the beginning of this video. But the fact that the caiman is so dangerous that it can take on anyone and anything within this massive rainforest should give you pause. Oh, and before you ask, yes, the black caiman is absolutely something that will go after a human and try to take them out of this world, and it has attacked humans in the past. What arguably makes it one of the most dangerous monsters on this list is the fact that it has a dark skin tone, which allows it to blend into the local waters. It also hunts at night, meaning that it'll camouflage perfectly with everything around it, and can sneak up on its prey without them getting wise that there are dangers literally right beside them. Just as monstrous, while they are fine with catching all manner of food, they don't bite it to death as you would expect. Instead, they will grab it, drag it into the water, and let the prey drown before slowly consuming it. Which is just a bit sadistic, really. No matter what time of the day, you should always be wary of the waters that the caiman exists in, because you'll likely never know where it is until it's simply too late. Number 2. The spectacled bear. Surprise! There are actually bears in the Amazon rainforest, and the spectacled bear is actually the only native species to South America. So, if you were to see one, you're seeing something rather unique. As you could imagine, people have mixed views on the spectacled bear due to how it is actually a bear. I mean, it's technically an omnivore and doesn't actively get aggressive towards people unless provoked, but that hasn't stopped people from hunting them out of fear that it may go after their cattle. Thankfully, some conservation efforts have been raised in order to protect this bear from being hunted down. Number 1. Karoo Fish. I decided to do the Karoo Fish last because of a certain tale that it's often associated with.
Yeah.
No, this is not a fake fish that somebody made up. It is a very real thing, and it can be very, very dangerous to certain creatures. That's because it is a parasitic type of fish. They'll latch onto things like fish through their gills, and then literally feast upon their blood. The irony is that this is not only proven, but they have ways of making that happen due to their somewhat small size. They can grow as large as 40 centimeters, but they can also be much smaller than that, which will allow their frames to literally worm into host bodies so that they can do their thing.
But that ain't even the scariest part. Tell them the scariest part for us, fellas.
That alone is monstrous, but it's not actually why we're here. The reason that the fish is on this list is due to a local legend where apparently these fish were infecting humans by going up through the male reproductive channel, if you catch my drift.
Yeah.
Allegedly, they would ride the stream from their urine as they went in the river, and then get into their organ until they were fully inside the body. The legend became so mainstream that people began to fear this fish more than any other predator. However, there have actually never been any confirmed cases of this happening, so you probably shouldn't fear it happening to you. Plus, the idea of one riding the stream of someone's urine, well, let's just call that scientifically unlikely, shall we? That's all from the great beauty and majesty of the Amazon and all of the various creatures that live inside of it, and why they're so monstrous. Does hearing about all of these animals make you glad that you're never going to get near the Amazon rainforest?